Acquiring a business is not the right move for everyone. And in this video, I'm going to go over 3 reasons why it might make sense for you to acquire a business. I'm going to go over 3 different situations in which it actually does make sense to acquire a business versus maybe starting one or not getting into business altogether. And I'm going to kind of go over the opposing situations for each of those 3 too, so you can tell whether or not it makes sense for you to acquire one if maybe you found a deal that you're thinking about doing, or you're thinking about just pursuing buying a business in general and taking that strategy. So the first situation that I have come across that I think it makes a lot of sense to acquire businesses is if you have some kind of secret sauce that you're bringing to the table that can dramatically grow the business faster. And this is a lot of different things. This could be expertise in sales. This could be expertise in recruiting, staffing. This could be expertise in marketing. Digital marketing specifically, I think, is really valuable in today's age. But the only time it makes sense is when the business does not already have this. Now, maybe the business is doing a little bit of this thing, or you could tell that it could benefit from this thing, and you have some kind of background. Maybe you've run sales teams your entire career, and you realize that there's a business that you're looking at that if they could only get the right salespeople or put the right sales team in place, it could just grow dramatically faster. That is a situation that we've seen and that we've gotten involved in, and we've been able to have a lot of success. Or maybe you see that it's an old kind of stale business that is maybe a boring business that has a lot of demand, and there's consistent customers, and they're somehow making money despite not knowing how to market at all on digital channels. And you have a background as a digital marketer. Maybe you could come in and bring Google ads, Meta ads, or some other combination of digital marketing that dramatically enhances how quickly they acquire customers, and you could grow it faster that way. So in this situation, you want to be thinking, what is my background? Do I actually have some kind of secret sauce that I could bring to this business? And does this business not already have this? Because what you're looking for is you're looking for a business where you can grow it faster than it was already growing. Now, the second situation is a business that is asset heavy. Now, I'll give you an example because we are working on an acquisition deal right now where this is the case. We actually did a startup business in the dumpster rental industry, but we realized very quickly just how expensive it is to grow a business like this. So you've got to invest in dumpsters, which are quite expensive, and they actually pay themselves back fairly quickly. Sometimes they may pay themselves back in a couple months or 6 months or something like that. But in the meantime, to grow the business, you have to make more capacity. So you have to buy more dumpsters, and then eventually even more dump trucks. All of these things are very expensive. Now, this is great because this business is able to charge a lot of money because it's a high barrier to entry. There's just not that many competitors doing it because your average Joe can't get in and take the startup costs to get into it. But what we realized is that we needed to be able to expand faster. And because it was so asset heavy to expand, and we're going to have to wait for the cash flow to come in and help us expand, we realized it would actually be a lot more quick to just go acquire a business that had all these assets already and be able to expand quicker that way. So you might look into this and realize that there's a business that you could acquire that has all these assets you need already, and you could acquire it for an amount that would include the cash flow that the business is bringing already. It's already kind of pre-built, and the assets, but it would get you there much quicker than having to incur all these startup costs and buy these assets new, because you're buying these assets a little bit depreciated already, but you can still use them. Now, a business that doesn't have many assets might not make as much sense to acquire. It might make more sense to start, because if you understand this business, then it might be a business that you could just replicate yourself and do for far less than it would cost you to acquire a business if it doesn't have a lot of assets, and there's not a high startup cost. So the third situation that you want to look for is the business is set up already in a way to be able to run with less involvement from you. So if you look to acquire a business, but it's going to require you stepping in as the primary day-to-day operator, and you're going to have to be really taking it over as a full-time job to run the business, then that business might not make a lot of sense for you to acquire, just being honest. Now, that's not always the case. You could end up acquiring it and it make a lot of sense for you, bring you a lot of cash flow, and make a lot more sense than maybe a current position that you're in. Maybe you have a job that doesn't pay you as much as you'd like to, and you could acquire a business that has enough room to pay yourself a great salary and still maybe have some left over, and you want to be working full-time in it. But it might just be easier to start a business that way and put that time in anyway. But if there's a business that you can acquire where there's already someone that is a day-to-day operator, that's a whole different story, because all of a sudden you can acquire that business. You can make sure that this person is able to continue their tenure and continue to run the business. And you could still pay yourself a salary if you'd like to, or you could just pay yourself dividends from the leftover cash flow that the business is making, and potentially even move on to one of two things. You could move on to another acquisition, whether that's one that expands this business, or you could move on to growing the business itself. You could just focus on bringing more sales to the business if you want to grow it faster. You could focus on tightening things up, recruiting more people. You could kind of start to work on the business versus in it. And whenever you're able to work on a business rather than just in it and be buried in the day-to-day, it gives you the flexibility to be able to grow it a lot more quickly and a lot more intentionally. So these are three situations that I would consider acquiring a business. Again, those are if you have some secret sauce that you can bring to the business that can help grow it a lot more quickly, that comes from your background and your career, or maybe some resource that you have or advantage that you have. And you would probably want to avoid the business if you don't have some special thing that you can bring to it. So look at the opposite of this too. Next one was if the business is asset heavy, if it already has a lot of expensive assets that would be even more expensive for you to try to go buy yourself and start up, then it probably makes a little bit more sense to acquire it. Or if the business is already set up to run without a lot of involvement from you, great opportunity to buy a business rather than start one or stay in your current position. So if you're thinking about doing this, consider these three things and let me know if there's one that I missed in the comments, or if you could think of another great reason to acquire a business or to avoid acquiring one that I didn't mention here. And we do these episodes every Tuesday night, right around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So tune in for more episodes breaking down things that have to do with business acquisitions, sales, and all kinds of deals around this sort of thing, especially with boring everyday businesses, because these are the types of acquisitions that I am actively working on, and I just love talking about this stuff. Shoot me a message on LinkedIn also if you have a topic that you'd like covered on the show, or if you have a business deal that you want me to review. And until the next time, see you on the next one.